I'm going to recap day 4 of the Donna Adelson trial. We're going to learn all about tower dumps, digital evidence, everything you ever wanted to know about who said what to whom and when and where. I've got that for you right after this intro. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. You know, everybody's covering this. I get that. And I really appreciate you watching this channel and getting my take on the evidence. I was an attorney for many, many years and tried cases. So I do have some opinions on what we're hearing in the evidence. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. Helps YouTube push this out to more people. And subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you. Also, if you're already subscribed, hey, consider becoming a member. So listen, day 4. Okay, Sergeant Corbett, he took the stand at the end of day 3, and I said I'd just do it all at the same time. So this is the end of day 3, going into day 4. We've got Sergeant Corbett on the stand. His responsibility was to take all of this digital evidence and compile it, which he did. And it took years. I mean, it's so much stuff. So here's how they started out. Okay, Dan Markel is deceased. They suspect it's a professional hitman. They decide, okay, where was Dan this morning on the morning of the murder? Dan Markel, the victim, was at his home with the boys that morning, took the boys to preschool. So he's at the preschool. Then after dropping off the boys, he goes to the gym. So they take and they subpoena the records from T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, and AT&T. And for any phone calls, any numbers that place phone calls to, from, in that particular time frame in those areas, then they cross-reference to see if there was any numbers that were common to all 3 of those areas. There were not. And he says it's not because the phones weren't there. They don't always pick up, I guess. Anyway, they didn't find it. But they did. Then they took that same information and compared it to all of the other digital evidence they had, the forensic cell phone dumps from Charlie and Donna and Catherine and Wendi and Harvey, like all of these cell phones that they did Celebrite dumps on, and they compared, were there any numbers coming to those areas? And there was one Miami phone number that had made a phone call to Harvey Adelson. But as it turns out, it was a benign phone call. It had nothing to do with the murder. Sigfredo Garcia had found out that his baby mama, Catherine Magbanua, was dating Charlie Adelson, and he got very angry about it. And so he looks up Adelson in the phone book, and he calls who he thinks is Charlie Adelson, and it turns out to be Harvey. He gets a voicemail and doesn't leave a voicemail. I mean, that was it. That was the end of that. But now they have a name, Sigfredo Garcia. So they get all of Sigfredo Garcia's phone calls, and his most frequent, they did a frequency report. The most frequent phone calls that he was making were to Catherine Magbanua, interestingly enough, who's dating Charlie Adelson, who's the brother of the victim's ex-wife. I think we have a connection here. I'll bet, circuitous. In any case, so now they know they've got to get Catherine Magbanua's phone. They know they got to get Luis Rivera's phone. Catherine Magbanua's frequency reports showed that the most phone calls she was making was to Sigfredo Garcia. But obviously, I mean, it's just the father of her kids. They're probably doing custody stuff. And but then it was Charlie Adelson. Charlie's most frequent phone calls was to his mom, and then vice versa. Donna's most frequent phone calls were to Charlie. So on cross-examination, I'm just going to jump into the cross that's focused on this information, this frequency report. The the defense pointed out this wasn't actually, like, all these phone calls weren't actually spikes in phone calls surrounding the murder. This was kind of their usual pattern of communicating with everybody. And he's like, yeah, it was. Thought that was interesting. Then we learned that there were actually 2 trips to Tallahassee that these hitmen had made. Now, this is all stuff that they're learning through the digital records, that they actually rented a car both times to go up to Tallahassee, and that there was no reason for them to be in Tallahassee. They didn't have a job in Tallahassee. There was just no reason for these guys to be up in Tallahassee. So they knew that they were kind of on to something. Then when they looked at Shirley's phone records, they also noticed that, and remember, we're talking about 2014 when everybody was still using landlines. Charlie actually believed, or we suspect that he believed, that calling on a landline was safer than calling on a cell phone. So when things would happen, he would use a landline to call Donna. For example, when the first car was rented by Sergio and Louis, he made a call to Donna. When the second car was rented, he called Donna 3 times. And we also know that somehow information was being passed to these hitmen. So then we learned that during a lot of these communications, text messages too, they got all the text messages. There were text messages where Donna and Charlie are discussing Harvey's birthday gift. Now, July 5th, the murder was on the 18th. The hitmen had gone up in June. They were planning this big birthday party July 5th. A surprise birthday gift was going to be at this birthday party. And anytime Donna, or this one time when Donna was texting Charlie about the birthday gift, she asked him to delete that text. The inference here that they're asking the jury to draw is that this surprise birthday gift was the murder of Dan Adelson. Dan Markel. Because if you recall, boy, that was a big faux pas, wasn't it? So sorry, Dan. If you recall the testimony of Rob Adelson, the older brother, he said he came down for the birthday party. Typically, they would all go in on a gift. They didn't go in on a gift for Harvey Adelson that year. He said that the gift was him coming down to the party. That was the gift. That was the surprise gift? I don't think so. No. I just think he wasn't privy to what the actual gift was. So the invites to this birthday party go out electronically, and Wendi does help with those invites. Although Donna claimed that she is the one that made the list of who to, send the invites to. The invites listed the boys, Dan Markel's 2 boys, and this is prior to the murder, with Adelson as their last name. I never knew this information. This is new to me. She used the Adelson last name for those 2 boys, even before her husband's murder, or Donna used it before her son-in-law's murdered. Interesting, huh? So that implicates them both, because they both worked on these invites, to tell you the truth. So at this birthday party, or when the day of the birthday party, July 5th, Wendi texts Dan to make sure that he's in town, because by now we know that the hitmen have gone up. They weren't successful, so no birthday gift for him then. That it was going to be done another time. So she texts Dan to make sure that he's going to be in town the following week, the 14th through the 17th, when the murder occurred, whatever that was, those days were. She confirmed, yeah, he's going to be in town those days, that he's not leaving until the 19th to go to New Jersey. Okay. Then we have on July 15th, 18th, the day that Luis Rivera rents the car the second time. I think Sergio rented the first time. The second time, Luis Rivera rents the car. That same day, Charlie is over visiting Catherine McManaman. Just interesting. Fun facts. The day of the murder, we know that Donna set up a television repair appointment. She's the one that scheduled the appointment, the TV repair appointment for July 18th, that morning of the murder. So that the inference is that it was so Wendi would have an alibi. So Wendi has to stay at home between 8 and 12, this 4-hour window when the Geek Squad is going to come out and repair this television that cannot be repaired. Someone smashed the front of the television. Anyway, the repairman comes and goes. So now Wendi is driving to get to the liquor store. She was invited to a Stock the Bar party. She was asked to bring Bullet Bourbon liquor. So she starts to drive, and there's a few ways she could have gone there. First of all, there were closer liquor stores than the one she went to. But she chose to go to this particular one. And instead of going like the most direct route, she decides she's going to drive through her old neighborhood where Truscott Drive is to get there. And she sees a roadblock. She's on Truscott Drive. She sees a roadblock. Like if she looked ahead, she'd see all the lights and sirens and everything. You got to believe that. And she immediately turns around and continues on to the liquor store. Never calls, hey, Dan, are you okay? I just saw, are the kids okay? Never, nothing like that. She continues on. She buys the liquor, the Bullet liquor. The jury was shown a copy, a picture of the liquor bottle, and then she goes to lunch with her friends. Interesting. So now, July 18th, we know the hitmen, they go up, they perform the hit. Donna is informed by Wendi during her police interview of the death of Dan Markel. So at 8:20 p.m. that night, Donna and Harvey leave their home. They start heading for Tallahassee. But we know that at 8:59 p.m., there's a text from Donna to Charlie saying, outside your house. And we know that Charlie was not there for about 30 minutes. From 8:59 to 9:19 p.m., he wasn't there. So did she stay there and wait for him? We don't know. We don't know. In any case, the officer testifies that he drove that route from when the time they left till the time they get to Tallahassee. And it took them an entire extra hour, even if you take in the count that they may have waited at Charlie's house for 30 minutes to give him the money, that it took them an extra hour. So on cross, the defense points out, well, if you're over 55, you drive a little slower. And in my case, that's true. I drive a little slower. And I got to do all the stops. I can't pass a Cracker Barrel. I got to go in, got to pee. It takes me a lengthier time to get where I need to go because I stop frequently. That's just me. And I drive slow. So she's insinuating that this is what's going on. They stopped, they had a meal, I don't know why. Your son-in-law was just murdered, and you need to go to Cracker Barrel and have a meal at 9:00 at night. I don't know, or in the middle of the night, because it's quite a drive. It's at least 8 hours to get from where they were up to Tallahassee. That's a hefty drive. At the last minute, when you're not rested, you're leaving at the end of the day. That's one hell of an endeavor. But I will tell you, the reason people are driving around South Florida to get to Tallahassee, this is a little known fact, but Tallahassee I litigated in Florida for many, many years. And when I had to go to Tallahassee, it was such a pain in the ass getting flights in and out of Tallahassee. Because if you missed your return flight, like if I had to go up and do like a hearing or something like that and then wanted to fly back, you better not miss your flight. Because if you miss your flight, you're stuck there. And it was very, very expensive. They have a little small airport. It's Tallahassee is the seat of the government for Florida. All the politicians are flying in and out. It was a very popular business route, but very, very expensive because just small planes going in and out of there and small jets. And yeah, so this is why, like, they couldn't just get on a Southwest flight and a cheapo Southwest flight and hop up to Tallahassee, which is what I would do when I would go to Tampa or Orlando. You could get a last minute flight for like next to nothing. Not that I was paying for it anyway, but you could get a flight for next to nothing to Tampa or Orlando, but Tallahassee, crazy, crazy expensive. This is why they were driving, but that has nothing to do with anything. It just as an aside. So they were doing the old person method of driving, just like I would have done. Anyway, but here's the interesting thing, and they didn't make a big deal out of it. I don't know if the jury actually caught this, but apparently they could not link Donna's phone as being at Charlie's house. All they have is that text from her saying outside your house. They never could trace her cell phone to being at his house that day. But what they did trace was Catherine McManus was at Charlie's house that night, like she testified to. So that part of her testimony was truthful. And Catherine McManus had gone to Luis Rivera's afterwards to give the money to Sergio the next morning. So all of that part of Catherine McManus' stuff was true. So the next person on the stand was an undercover FBI agent. They did not show him, but he testified about the bump. He was the person that went out and did the bump. So he said, I was posing as a gang member. I go out and I approach Donna Adelson, who appears startled, and he hands her a newspaper article, and on it, it has a phone number and it says $5,000. And he says, listen, I know you took care of Katie. I know you took care of Tato, which is Sergio Garcia's nickname. And I'm going to need you to take care of Tato and Tuto. I don't know who's who, what's what, but one of them was Sergio, one was Luis. So this gang member was insinuating, we want you to take care of Luis's family too. You're taking care of Katie and Sergio's. Now you need to take care of Tato or Tuto or whoever. So she immediately goes home. Well, she had to go pick up the boys. After she gets the boys, she goes home and she calls Charlie. All she tells him is that, this involves your ex-girlfriend. They mentioned your ex-girlfriend. Now, she never mentions the word Katie. Charlie doesn't even know this. Charlie just knows that whatever mom wants to talk to me about in person has to do with my ex-girlfriend. So he calls Catherine McManus. Now he's got multiple ex-girlfriends he could call. He calls Catherine. He knows what this is about. Anyway. So then the next person that's on the stand, by the way, the defense on cross points out, Donna Adelson never paid that $5,000, did she? No, she never paid it. So then Luis Rivera is arrested, but not for this murder. He's arrested for something unrelated to this murder. But now they're going to have a sit down. He wants a deal. And so they're like, well, what are you going to give us in exchange for this deal? So he made a proffer of evidence. Here's what was in his proffer that they did not know. Sergio Garcia, when they rented one of the vehicles, accidentally shot a hole in the floor in the passenger side. I don't know if it was a passenger. I don't know. shot a hole in the floor, went through the carpet, went into the vehicle, went through a gas line. They had to get that repaired, and they never informed the rental car company. So they are trying to trace to see if this proffer is true. Did this really happen? And meanwhile, the rental car has already been sold and painted, gone. But they trace it by VIN number. They find it. Lo and behold, there's damage in the vehicle where he said there would be. They could see where the gas line had been repaired. So that part of his proffer was true. Then he said the other part of his proffer was that they knew that this had to happen that day, that because Dan Markel was leaving the next day. And there was one more thing. Did I not write that down? Anyway, so they made a deal with Luis Garcia, and he sang like a bird after that. We know that. His deal was he was sentenced to 19 years. He agreed to 19 years in exchange for pleading guilty to the murder, to run concurrent with the sentence he got for whatever he was arrested for, which I think it was a 17-year sentence. So he'll be out fairly soon, I would think. So then the final person on the stand that I'm going to recap in tomorrow's episode, because it's another start of a lengthy thing. This is first they put on the guy that did the recordings. The agent who went in and actually he was just posing as a customer, where they were having these conversations that were recorded in several restaurants, some between Charlie and his dad, some between Charlie and Catherine. This guy went in. He went into the one with Charlie and his dad, and he sets this big old briefcase down, and you could tell that Charlie kind of figured out pretty quickly that, they were being watched and heard. So you're not going to hear anything on that video that's of any substance. But then the person that was on the stand next is the one that actually does digital forensics and enhanced all of those recordings so that people could make heads or tails of what was being said during these conversations in these restaurants. And then what we're going to hear from the next witness that started and will continue through today is the recordings. Now, when I peeked in this morning during the live feed, they're showing the recording, which is really bad. And the transcript next to the recording. I see now they're just showing the transcripts of the recordings so that you can make heads or tails. I remember when I listened in Charlie's trial and the other trial of these transcripts, like, I couldn't understand a darn thing they were saying. Not at all, because especially the one between Catherine and Charlie, where they're constantly talking in code. So you don't know what the heck they're talking about anyway on the things you can make out that they're saying. So in any case, so that's the show for today. That's the recap. I will see you in tomorrow's recap. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'll be at the ballpark again. Play ball. See y'all later. Take care.